Here's a hard truth. Most AI failures aren't technical failures, they are governance failures. A model that nobody owned, a policy that nobody enforced, a use case that nobody evaluated before go live. Domain 1 of the AAIR exam covers exactly this: AI risk governance and framework integration. And it carries 37% of the total exam weight. That's the largest single domain, and for good reason. In this video, we'll go deep on frameworks, organizational alignment, oversight, policy, and ethics. By the end, you'll understand not just what good AI governance looks like, but why it matters at every level of the enterprise. Let's dig in. So, why does governance get 37%? Let me put it this way. When you look at real-world AI incidents, and there have been plenty, the root cause is almost never a purely technical failure. It's a governance failure. Nobody owned the model. The risk wasn't assessed before deployment. The policy existed but wasn't enforced. The ethics review was skipped because the timeline was tight. Governance is what prevents all of that. Domain 1 covers 6 major subtopics: AI frameworks and use case evaluation, organizational process alignment, ownership and oversight, policies and training, regulatory compliance, and trustworthiness, including ethics and ESG. Think of Domain 1 as the enterprise context in which every AI system exists. You can have the most sophisticated model in the world, but without governance, it's a risk waiting to materialize. Isaka designed this domain to test whether you can design, evaluate, and enforce the governance structures that keep AI risk under control. And here's the key insight. Governance isn't bureaucracy. It's the difference between AI that creates value and AI that creates liability. Every time an organization considers a new AI use case, someone needs to ask, does this use case align with our risk appetite? That's a governance question, and it's one of the first things Domain 1 tests. Use cases need to be classified. Is this AI system strategic, core to the business model, operational, supporting internal processes, or high risk, affecting individuals' rights, finances, or safety? The classification determines what level of governance is required. Think of it like a traffic light. Low risk gets green, streamline review. High risk gets red, full governance process before you move forward. The key frameworks you need to know for AIR are NIST AIR MF, ISO 42001, EU AI Act, and ISO 23894. Each has a different scope and applicability. NIST is voluntary and principles-based. ISO 42001 is a management system standard with certification. The EU AI Act is binding law. Framework selection depends on your jurisdiction, your sector, and your AI system's risk classification. Knowing which framework to apply and when is exactly what the AAIR exam scenario questions test. Here's a challenge I see consistently in organizations. AI risk gets managed in a silo. The AI team does their thing, the risk team does theirs, and they meet only when something goes wrong. That's the problem that this subtopic addresses. AI risk must be embedded in existing enterprise risk management structures, not treated as something separate and exotic. That means the AI risk register needs to link to the enterprise risk register. AI-specific risks need to be captured in the same taxonomy and escalation pathways as other enterprise risks. Risk appetite statements need to be updated to explicitly address AI. If your organization's risk appetite statement says nothing about AI, you have a governance gap. And cross-functional alignment is non-negotiable. Risk, legal, IT, and business units all need to share accountability for AI governance. I've seen situations where the legal team didn't know the AI was processing personal data because nobody had told them. That's a process alignment failure. The AAIR exam expects you to understand how to design and enforce the organizational processes that make AI governance real, not just documented. Let me ask you a direct question. If an AI system your organization deployed made a decision that harmed someone, who would be accountable? If you hesitated on that answer, you've just identified an AI governance gap. Every AI system must have a designated owner, not a department, not a vendor, a specific person who is accountable for that system's risk profile, its performance, and its control effectiveness. AI governance committees provide the oversight layer, but they only work if the composition is right. Risk, ethics, legal, and business must all be at the table. Otherwise, important perspectives get missed. Human in the loop controls are becoming a regulatory requirement, especially for high risk AI systems. If your AI is making consequential decisions about people, a human must be able to intervene and override. And board level accountability for AI risk is no longer optional in many sectors. Regulators are increasingly asking boards to demonstrate that they understand and govern AI risk. That means risk professionals need to translate technical AI risk into language that boards can engage with. Ownership without accountability is just a name on a spreadsheet. Make sure your governance model creates real accountability, not just documented responsibility. Good governance lives or dies by its policies. And for AI, the policy landscape is broader than most organizations initially realize. At minimum, you need an acceptable use policy, defining what AI can and cannot be used for. An ethics policy, establishing principles for responsible AI deployment. A data governance policy, specifying how AI training data is collected, used, and protected. And an incident reporting policy, ensuring AI failures are escalated and documented promptly. Procedures bring policies to life. Risk assessment procedures tell teams how to evaluate a new AI use case before it's approved. Change management procedures ensure that modifications to AI models don't bypass governance controls. Model retirement procedures ensure that legacy AI systems are decommissioned safely, including secure disposal of training data. And then there's training. Policies are useless if nobody knows about them. Role-based training is essential because the right content for a board member is very different from what a developer or risk analyst needs to understand. I've seen organizations produce excellent AI policies that lived in a PDF on the intranet and were never enforced. Policy without training, enforcement, and review cycles is theater. The AAIR exam expects you to design governance that actually works. The regulatory landscape for AI is one of the fastest moving areas in compliance, and it is explicitly tested in Domain 1 of AAIR. Let's ground this in what you actually need to know. The EU AI Act operates on a risk-based tiering system. Prohibited AI, things like social scoring and real-time biometric surveillance, are banned outright. High-risk AI, used in hiring, credit, healthcare, law enforcement, faces strict obligations including mandatory risk management, bias testing, and human oversight. Limited risk systems like chatbots must be transparent about being AI, and minimal risk systems like spam filters face no specific obligations. NIST AIRMF takes a different approach. It's voluntary, principles-based, and organized around 4 functions: govern, map, measure, and manage. It doesn't mandate specific controls. It provides a structured process for thinking about AI risk. ISO 42001 is a management system standard. It's certifiable, which makes it valuable for organizations wanting to demonstrate governance maturity externally. And from an India perspective, the DPDP Act has direct implications for AI systems processing personal data, something highly relevant for Fortivan students operating in the Indian market. The key skill Domain 1 tests here is gap assessment. Can you map your organization's AI practices against applicable requirements and identify what needs to change? Let's close Domain 1 with the concept that ties everything together: trustworthy AI. ISACA defines trustworthy AI through a set of core attributes: valid, reliable, safe, secure, explainable, and fair. These aren't aspirational goals. They're measurable properties that governance structures must be designed to uphold and verify. Ethics boards are becoming standard for organizations deploying high-risk AI. Their composition matters. You need diversity of perspective, genuine authority to challenge AI deployments, and a clear mandate. An ethics board that can only advise but never block is not an effective governance control. ESG integration is the final piece. Environmental. AI's energy consumption must be measured and managed. Social. Workforce impact, bias, and civil rights implications must be assessed. Governance. Decision making must be transparent, auditable, and accountable. Here's why this matters practically. Investors, customers, and regulators are all paying attention to how organizations govern AI through an ESG lens. For risk professionals, ESG is not a sustainability team's responsibility. It's a risk dimension that belongs in your AI risk assessments. Domain 1 is the foundation on which everything else in AIR is built. Get governance right, and you have a framework for managing every other risk category we'll cover in this course.